Kia ora koutou, we'll just start the meeting. So we'll start with a karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atukura, he teo, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei Māori ora. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Haere mai ki tēnei hui. Te iwi o rangatane, tēnā koutou. Te konihira o Papauia, tēnā koutou. E nā mana, e nā reo, nā mihi nui ki a koutou katoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome everybody. I would just like to go through some of the housekeeping before we start the meeting proper. So the meeting is being recorded and it will be on the Council's website, and the meeting has also been live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. The health and safety requirements for the Council chamber should be on the display screen shortly, but basically in the case of an emergency, follow the committee administrators, and the assembly point is the clock tower in Te Maraeohine. That's a no smoking building. There's a defibrillator located on the ground floor, and if there are any near miss or incidents, please report to the committee administrator. So because the meeting is being recorded, please give your name before speaking, particularly for our presenters. And I'll be reading out the motions, even though we can all see them on the screen, for the purposes of people who are listening to the recording. So the first item is the apologies. And I have apologies from Councillors Beattie and Harpiter. Mr. Mayor.
Madam Chair, just early departure on council business.
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to move that the apologies be accepted. Seconded Councillor Bowen. And we will vote on that, please. And that's carried, 15 votes for and none against. Item 2 is notification of additional items. There are no additional items that I'm aware of. Are there any late items? No. Item 3 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from councillors?
Yes, through the Chair, I'm the Chair of Order Connect.
Thank you, Danielle. We'll note that. Item 4 is public comment, and we do have public comment this afternoon from Kerry Hockard, who's the Community Health Advocate from the Cancer Society of New Zealand Central Districts, and Kerry is going to make a comment on the smoke-free Aotearoa 2025 action plan. So Kerry, I know you've done lots of public comment to us before, but you have 3 minutes to make your public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. As Lorna said, the Government Smoke-Free Action Plan 2025, this is out for consultation right now. The plan builds on successful measures over the last decade that has helped reduce New Zealand smoking rates to 13%. However, smoking rates for Māori and Pacifica still remain significantly higher, and much more needs to be done to address these inequities. The plan presently fails to acknowledge the role that local authorities have played in reducing the impact of smoking in outdoor public spaces. Almost all councils have now adopted policies to promote smoke-free outdoor environments and smoke-free outdoor dining. Locally, this has been well supported by our community and very effective at reducing the visibility and harm of smoking to our next generation. The remit regarding smoke-free outdoor dining that our council successfully led at 2015 local government conference was an example of inspiring advocacy and leadership. However, local government New Zealand has still been asking for national legislation for smoke-free outdoor hospitality areas since 2015. So I ask today that you again add your voice and your experience to help achieve smoke-free Aotearoa by 2025 and call for legislation to designate all outdoor hospitality venues as smoke-free. I ask that you petition central government to make our current local authority best practice outdoor policies a matter of law for all Aotearoa, so everyone can benefit. Let's reduce the harm caused by tobacco in our community. Other measures outlined in the plan that you may also like to consider supporting include reducing the supply of tobacco in our community, raising the minimum purchase age, reducing the nicotine content of tobacco, which supports quitting, and the removal of filters, a major pollutant in our waterways. Each of these measures are also important strategies to consider in promoting the health and well-being of our communities and supporting a smoke-free generation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kerry. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Dennison.
Through you, is it possible to ask the staff member if we're actually submitting on this process anyway, and we could incorporate some of the thoughts in our submission?
Yes, I'll ask the General Manager, Strategy and Planning to comment, please.
At this stage, there's no current plans to lodge a submission.
Thank you.
Kerry, there's a question from me. Just that the time frame for this is quite short, I understand. So submissions have to be in by the 31st of May, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
There is, at present, the Cancer Society working with LGNZ to put together a template submission, which will hopefully considerably help councils as far as the time frame's concerned. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dingwall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess this might be a question for staff, but just following on from that, if staff aren't putting in a submission, what would be the actual process for us to try and put in a submission?
David, are you happy to take that?
Well, the first thing is a submission prepared by the staff would be a submission from the council, so we're one and the same. I guess if the committee today was of the mind to want a submission, then they could refer that to the Chief Executive today to prepare a submission. In terms of the content of a submission, I'd strongly recommend that the Council focuses its submission on the matters that most directly relate to the Council's functions, which relate to the use of public space, potentially any environmental impacts, waste, those sorts of things. But some of the proposals are more directly related to the functions of health institutes as opposed to councils. So I think the presentation from Kerry covered, in terms of the proposal from the government, covers a range of things, but if you would like, as I said, if you would like a submission, we need to think carefully about how the council can best contribute.
Okay.
Thank you. So are there any further questions for Kerry before we... Councillor Naylor, are you wanting to ask a question? No? Okay. Thank you, Kerry, for your public comment.
Thank you. And also there's also the possibility you can make personal submissions or support the Cancer Society submission that we're making, which is very much focused on outdoor environments and reducing the harm, particularly for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will move that we receive the public comment information, seconded by Councillor Bowen, and I'll open for any comment. just while members are getting their thoughts together, my own view is that we are slightly constrained by our own processes here, in that time doesn't allow us to refer this to another committee or to council for a submission before the cut-off date for submissions. And therefore, I think if members are of a mind that council put in a submission, our only option in this meeting is to refer the public comment to the Chief Executive for the appropriate action. So having said that, I'll open for comment. I'm not sure if the systems are working, but yeah. Councillor Bowen.
I'm in the exciting seat again. Is that? I think that stopped echoing. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to follow up on your comments. Say, is it your intention to move that we do refer this, or are you looking for somebody to move that from the floor?
I'm happy to move it, but I thought I'd try and gauge the will of the room first.
Then I would be very happy to second you moving that we refer the public comment to the CE for action.
Okay, well then, since that's moved and seconded, could we perhaps put that on the screen? And then comments can refer to both of them. Did you want to speak to that, Councillor Bowen?
I think, as you said, the timing is difficult, but as the officer alluded to, this is a well understood area of council policy. There are some clear areas of interest that we can justifiably submit to, and I wouldn't have too many concerns about the need for, I'm having many microphones, and the need for that to come through another committee or back to council. So on that basis, I'd be very supportive of the Chief Executive taking the action that she sees fit in this space. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dingwall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'd also like to echo some of the comments that have been made by Councillor Bowen. We do already have our smoke-free policy, so we've already looked at some of these, but one of the issues that we constantly face is the teeth behind it, and I think it'd be appropriate to see if we can try and get some teeth behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'll also support this being referred to the Chief Executive to make a submission. I think our council very proudly has been quite vocal in this space around achieving the kaupapa of a smoke-free country. And as the Manager of Strategy and Planning's outlined, the submission would need to be within the framework of what we our policy already outlines, and I would absolutely support that. But I do think that when decisions that are being considered by central government affect us, we should have a say, perhaps even if it is a little bit more procedural by way of just making a submission. But councillors will also recall the comments made on our recent trip to Wellington, where we met with the local government minister, where it was quite clear that actually we do have a reputation for making submissions and being well engaged in the process. So I do think it's important to take these opportunities where we can.
Thank you. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and much in line with recent comments from the Deputy Mayor. Good that we have a track record on this in Wellington already, not just this issue, but being an active council. But I would like to see us consider how we could be a bit more proactive and informed in this space. I think we're very fortunate today that a proactive member of the public has brought us a specific opportunity for us to engage, and I would like to think that we could set up systems and processes whereby we could be alerted as early as possible through our own mechanisms to be aware of. Obviously, there is a huge amount of traffic that we could get involved with down in Wellington. I'm not suggesting we do it all. What I'm suggesting is we have awareness, prioritize, and where our community needs a voice in Wellington, we make sure that it comes from this table where appropriate. Very happy to support the recommendations today, and will be interested in conversations in future about improvements to process.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, are there any further comments? Okay, I don't think I need a right of reply on this, so we're happy to take both recommendations together? Oh, I see the staff have already amalgamated them, great. So we will vote on this then, please. And that's carried, 15 votes for and none against. Thank you. So we'll move on now to item 5, which is a presentation from Aura Connect. And so I'd like to invite the Aura Connect team up to present. Kora. Oh, I'm not sure what happened there, whether it was mine or, or yours. Welcome. You have 10 minutes to do your presentation. We use the traffic light system, which is green for 7 minutes, orange for 2 minutes, and red for the last minute. And then a beeper goes, and then you just have to finish your main point at that point. And then there may well be questions from elected members. So when you're ready.
Oh, sorry. Tēnā koutou katoa. Firstly, before I start, I would just like to thank you all for allowing us the time to present to you today. My name is Stacey.
Sorry.
My name is Stacey Serevatu, and I work at Te Tihi o Ruahine Whānau Ora Alliance. But today I'm here to talk to you about Ora Connect. Ora Connect is an alliance made up of tangata whenua, rangitani o Manawatu.
Sorry, Stacey. Apologise for the difficulties we're having with the microphone. We'll just try and set you up with a different one, and then we'll get you just to start again if you want.
Right.
Apologies for that.
Ready?
Yeah.
Is it on? Oh,
yes.
So what is Ora Connect? Ora Connect is an alliance made up of tangata whenua, rangitani o Manawatu, local NGO, government and Māori organisations who have a vested interest in achieving health and wellbeing outcomes for whānau specifically living in the 4412. So the 4412, for those that may not know, is our southwestern suburbs of Palmerston North.
Okay. Sorry, Stacey, I do apologise. Just while the technical team are getting the presentation up again, would you mind just pausing just for a second until we've got your presentation in front of you? And welcome to Matarama, who is providing the support, moral support, I believe, today. Yeah. Well, we're just struggling with a little bit of technology problem here. Bear with us. Okay, looks like we're back in business. So we'll just start your time again, Stacey.
Okay,
so,
excellent. Yeah. Should I start again?
I think that would be good. Yep, that would be good.
Ora Connect was born out of the 2016 community profile Karangatira Karangateao, and it highlighted a number of key factors influencing the health and wellbeing outcomes for the 4412 community. It also provides an in-depth understanding of the makeup of the 4412, which is approximately a third of our population here in Aotearoa. It has the highest Māori and Pacifica population, followed by a growing number of former refugee communities. It's a growing youthful community, and it also has the largest population of kainga ora housing. Together as an alliance, we aim to build a connected, healthy community within the 4412. Ora Connect operates and is guided by the principles of whānau ora being a holistic approach to well-being. It looks at the individual within the context of their whānau, and we operate at a high level utilising the 7 whānau ora outcomes, as you can see on the slide there. At an operation level, we utilise collective impact as our way of working. It is a framework, it's a sustainable way to working together to achieve greater impact within our community. There have been a number of iterations of collective impact, and the current one that we're utilising within Ora Connect looks at the following conditions: community aspiration, high leverage activities, inclusive community engagement, strategic learning, containers for change, and movement building. As within Ora Connect, we have a number of alliance partners, and as you can see, the Palmerston North City Council are a part of our alliance and have been a part of the alliance since the initial beginnings of Ora Connect. Investment for sustainability. So a few weeks ago, we were fortunate to be given the opportunity to attend of the Council 10-year strategic plan, and from here we were able to access a copy of Te Māhere Hapori to Honohono document, where we were able to clearly see the correlation between Ora Connect and the investment the Council are wanting to make within the community. I wanted to highlight straight away, we saw the key priorities highlighted in Te Māhere Hapori to Honohono were directly linked to achieving whānau ora. So with the achievement of whānau ora, there's a direct correlation between the achieving your key priorities as highlighted in the document. Just to give you a little bit more detail without going into too much of each of the activities, this is what we have been currently doing within Ora Connect at the moment. This slide provides you some insight to the activities happening within Ora Connect, and you can clearly see that the Palmerston North City Council are spread across most of the activities, except one, being the pharmacy project. But for ease of understanding, we have put together a table that aligns these activities to the current ongoing actions stipulated in Te Māhere Hapori to Honohono. The activities that I have included as part of this table, I've only included the ones that the Council are currently a part of, and we can see a clear view of how the activities that we are doing within Ora Connect relate to the ongoing actions within the document. From here, our focus is to establish a shared measurement platform that will look at measuring across all activities the impact it has within our community. So with all that being said, you can see on the slide that Ora Connect's operating budget is much lower than its estimated expenditure. It's important to note that the income that is received is spread across things like roles, resources, and implementation of some activities. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Stacey. Councillors, you do have a copy of this presentation on LG Hub if you wanted to have a look at some of the small print a bit closer up. So are you happy to take some questions now? Thank you. So first we have Councillor Butt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I In your activities slide, there was something saying micro-giving. Can you explain a little bit what that micro-giving is?
Yes, so micro-giving, we're actually working alongside Te Awa Foundation and the council at looking to establishing a giving platform where at a local level we're giving and able to invest that fund into the local community, specifically focusing within the 4412 area.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. I just had a question about the REMA Wellbeing Project, because that's a relatively new one and one that I'm quite focused on myself. So can you tell us how that's going? I know you've just, it's just got going in the last few months. So for those that don't know, perhaps you can just explain a bit more about it as well.
Yes, so the REMA Wellbeing activity the REMA is an acronym for Refugee, Internally Displaced, Migrant, Asylum Seeker, and that was formalised by February Suharto, who is the REMA Wellbeing Coordinator based at Think Hauora. So where we're at within that space, so she's done a lot of work prior to coming to Order Connect around identifying the needs and opportunities within the former refugee community and tabling it at Order Connect. We have formed a bit of a squad, and within that squad we want to identify an implementation plan going forward and how to utilise the partners within that squad to achieve the parts of that project.
Cool, thank you very much. Councillor McCallard.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks, Stacey and Nikki, for the report. Just had a few questions. You mentioned that, the slides also mentioned that integrating Maori models of well-being, for example, is something that's a key part of the organisation. Can you please just explain what are some of the challenges that you're experiencing in terms of doing that?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I'm not sure if we are necessarily experiencing challenges with doing that.
Yeah.
I think that we have found thus far the partners at the Alliance table and also the connectivity within the community has been embracing of that approach. So currently, I wouldn't say we had a lot of challenges on that front.
Oh, cool. If I may, one more question, Madam Chair. You also mentioned about building relationships with community of interest, that sort of thing. Any sort of barriers that you're facing in relation to that as well? And because I know that building relationships with other communities of interest does carry some challenges and that sort of thing, and also saying that you're trying to also implement quite a lot of activities and trying to get a lot of activities going. Is this something that you've probably struggled to do as well?
I think that's the beauty about collective impact. So collective impact doesn't just sit in one organisation. The load is shared amongst, and you can clearly see on the screen with the logos that sit within each activity. We each have our own community. Some of them sit across each other, some of them are the same communities, but I don't think in terms of having, there's no barriers essentially to accessing community through the utilisation of a collective impact approach. I hope that answers your question.
Sure. One more question?
Yep. Could I get you to pull your microphone a bit closer, Councillor McCullough?
Sorry.
We're struggling to hear you.
Cool. Thanks for the question, for the answer. Also, REMA, the REMA wellbeing thing is also something that's close to my heart, being a former refugee. And just wanted to ask one question. Are we seeing an increase, let's say, in terms of increase in numbers in terms of refugee wanting to access any of these services or activities?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. So I think as Stacey identified, it's in its early stages with February starting that work and leading that out. So I think there is a lot of work to be done around growing the relationships. One, I think, with those populations within our community and rangitani in the city. So that's been something that we have been working on, and also by February coming to the table at the Alliance leadership. I also think Hauora is actively trying to progress what are the opportunities to improve the outcomes for those communities and what is the best way to engage. So I think if you were keen, then we could definitely pass your details on.
Sure.
That sounds like an offer to me.
I know that Orphy is part of I think he's been invited along to the squad, alongside February, so kia ora.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, excellent. Come along and get a volunteer there. I love it. Thank you. We've got a question from Councillor Barrett next.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Stacey, for introducing this. My question relates to how you're thinking about, I guess, tracking progress as this continues over time. You've sort of given us the framework and the actions as they are today. What's the thinking around tracking progress over time?
So that is our current focus what our current focus is at the moment is around a shared measurement platform. So identifying across all activities outcomes, and we actually have the opportunity at the moment to pilot within our collective through you would have seen on the screen before, activity screen, here, ko tō manawa, ko tōku manawa, which is burglary prevention. Burglary prevention activity, where a key part of that is around shared measurement. So that's our interest in and where we want to actually focus some of our investment at the moment. So, yeah.
Thank you. I guess if I can follow on that then, is there conversations already about measurements that you would be needing to share with City Council, and are there gaps in what City Council might be measuring or thinking about that would support your activity?
Yes, simply a yes to that question. Yeah. So in the ko tō manawa, ko tōku manawa, that project is led out of the National Office of Police Headquarters and has been brought to the table as a way of accessing those communities. It's a significant project for the city to be involved in, and is the only other site, there is only one other site in New Zealand that is currently participating in that. So it's fortunate that through that project in particular, and the collection of data and the analysis of that, we will be able to see some things that will benefit the council's agenda, such as street lighting. What is the range of street lighting available in those neighbourhoods to ensure people feel safe? So there are some of those things that will be drawn from the data within that particular project as an example.
Thank you. I suppose then if I can, finally follow up then from where things sit today, are you comfortable that the connections and communication channels are there to see that through to logical conclusions?
Yes. We feel like we have good engagement from the council staff, and good engagement from the other alliance parties that are connected to the table. And we also have widened our relationships across into the Safety Advisory Committee. So we have got connections across a range of stakeholders and existing opportunities.
All right, thank you for those answers, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you both for your presentation. Just a couple of questions. Firstly, the shortfall that you mentioned in your budget, that's obviously over an 18-month period, and we're more than halfway through that. What's your current plan for addressing that?
Well, it's your lucky opportunity today because obviously
It's a leading question.
part of our coming to the council is not only to inform you of the range of activities that are taking place in these suburbs, but obviously by aligning it to the community development strategy that you have, we can see that there is a pathway for investment and how then those outcomes could be achieved through the resourcing that the council could contribute to AutoConnect, along with others, DHB, Think Hauora, Police National Headquarters. So this is a way of actually driving the best outcomes and the most efficient use of the resource that is available.
Okay, thank you. And the second question relates to the alliance partners that you've outlined in this presentation. And what's your format for meeting with all stakeholders, and what is council's current representation in those meetings?
So we meet 6 weekly. We have a really high attendance. We get probably a representative from each partner there, and we have really good attendance from the council, good involvement from the council as well.
Thank you. So can you just be a little bit more specific? Yeah. Are you talking about the staff, or are there elected members involved?
We have, so the partners that sit at the table are usually in a role of where they can make decisions, and then their job is to move, if there are working groups and squads that are formed, as you would have seen in the activities, then the person that sits at those tables is responsible for pushing it out to the staff members within their respective organisations.
Councillor Naylor, I think the General Manager could just comment about the staff involvement for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So I know you're very familiar with our staff and they're involved quite a lot, and I'm just texting back with Jo, who's working at home at the moment because she's ill, but yeah, she has mentioned that there is a process and train to support a application coming in for one of our grants.
So it's normally Joanne Ransom, isn't it?
It's Jo and her team, yep. Yeah, I think it's just Strategic Priorities Grant, I think, is the, it's being prepared.
Okay, thank you, that's very helpful. Thank you both.
Councillor Hancock.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks, Martha and Stacey, for your discussion today. I just a little bit curious, just in terms of if you've got any comment around sort of your planning horizons in terms of achieving sustainable change in communities, and perhaps just to go with that, is there any kind of, I guess, initial thinking about perhaps expansion to other postcodes?
The sustainability, we definitely have been considering that, and I think that's why we're using collective impact. So collective impact it had its first beginnings from Stanford University, had 5 conditions, and then it has been further developed by the Tamarack Institute in Canada, and that is the pool of research and evidence that we have been utilising. There also is an organisation in New Zealand called Inspiring Communities that has a number of government agencies as well as iwi at the table who are progressing collective impact and the use of it in New Zealand. It is a long-term approach to community development and sustainable change. So in the United States and in Canada, there are communities that have been undertaking collective impact, and obviously they're measuring their impact through shared measurement and evaluation, have for over 20 years been watching the transformation of communities and the outcomes associated with health, with food, with all manner educational outcomes, all manner of domains that have improved life course outcomes for communities. So that's the sustainability. Could you just say your other question, please?
Yeah, sorry, the other part was just really about the possibility perhaps of expansion to other high deprivation areas.
Absolutely. That's the beauty about collective impact and also about whānau ora, that they have applicability regardless of the community. And so they are transferable, and I think that that also could be done through the connections, say, of the 4412 to other areas of the city, and help to also reconnect some of the passages that exist in the city that maybe aren't so connected.
Thank you. There are no more questions, but thank you for taking all of those questions, and thank you so much for your time coming in to present today. Ngā mihi, Stacey and Matara, thank you. Councillors, I'm happy to move that the presentation be received for information. Seconded Councillor Bowen, and I'll open up for any comment.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to add that the beauty about Ora Connect is that it is driven up from the bottom and from the community in iwi. As we know, there's been a lack of investment in the 4412 community, so there's an opportunity to invest to make meaningful change. And we can do things innovatively like the micro-giving. We don't want to just rely on government agencies and city councils. We actually want to create investment pathways that are going to be sustainable for the community. So that's really the great thing about an alliance framework too, because we're all there as equal partners. So I'd just like to add those comments and thank the ladies for their presentation. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you, Danielle. Councillors, is there anyone else wishing to comment? I'll just make a comment that I think it's very timely for us to have a focus on where the work is needed in the city, coming up to the long-term plan. And it's also timely for us to hear about successful ways that community development is happening on the ground outside of council, where council is a partner with other groups. And I think it's a very good model. And it's also a tried and tested model, as Mataro explained to us. So I'm very pleased to hear of all of the different squads and projects that are going on, and also the new ones coming on stream. And I'd just like to say thank you very much for your work in this space, and we appreciate it. Thank you. So no further comment from councillors, in which case we will vote to receive the presentation, please. And that is carried, 15 votes for and none against. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 6, which is a presentation from Te Rupu Oranga Highbury Trust about Te Wharekoha Highbury. And so I'll welcome Corinne and Chrissy and Naveal. Yeah. Thank you. You have 10 minutes for your presentation, and then there'll be questions. We'll use the traffic light system as we did before. Just check that your microphone's on, and give it a test if you like. It's that one I think you'll be using the handheld, yeah. And we look forward to hearing from you.
Very good. Okay. Kia ora koutou. Chrissy Paul, as Lorna introduced me. So I'm just giving, I suppose, where Te Rupu Oranga Highbury came from. So we had a group of primarily kaumātua working in the community to support initiatives and create initiatives that were for the health and well-being of primarily Highbury. And that sort of went on for about 10 years, and then we decided to become a charitable trust, Te Rupu Oranga Highbury. And then straight after that, we decided to open a community centre. And initially we were in a state house flat. And we put our sign up and we had a fantastic opening, and then the next day there were all these donations on our doorstep, and we thought, oh my goodness, and then the next day and the next day and the next day. So we started a free clothing shop. And that's really been the story of Te Wharekoha, is that it's evolved over time, that it's for the community and by the community, Certainly the community is taking ownership of Te Whare Koha, and that, you know, we want the community to be part of the solution. And I think that people got tired of things being done to them. So in this way, people are empowered, and sometimes too empowered, but empowered to become part of the solution. Really, after Lorna's visit and encouragement, we're sitting here today. And so I suppose what we're asking the community for is, you know, we're outgrowing our current venue. It's been kindly donated by an individual in the community that I won't name. But we really want to take this initiative further. We are growing. The need for what we're providing the community continues to grow. And, you know, so I know that people often think that we're just a free shop and we give everything free, but actually it's about communities being connected and participating and, you know, being empowered. So that, you know, it's under the guise that we just give free things. Actually, it's more about, you know, empowering our community. So on that, Neva's going to give us a presentation. And here we go.
Oh, thank you. Hello, everyone. So I actually made this presentation based on the data collected from 2018 to 2020. So first I looked at the visitations and the ways of visits. So the visitations from 2018 to 19, there is a slight increase. But in 2020, as we all know, due to COVID, it dropped drastically. But then we further looked into that each year, so we could find like actually an interesting trend in how the people actually came into the place to get the services. So in 2018, there were more people walking. That means in 2018, people around the center, so with the walking distance, so they came in. Then in 2019, more people have used bikes. And all the 3 years, about the same number of people came using their cars. So that actually means the service areas that this center is doing may have expanded. But to know that, we need some more information collected at the center when the recipients are coming in to get their services. So collection of more information would be more meaningful, and then that way you definitely know what areas you are really serving. So about the provided services, food and shopping have been the most. Then transportation is also about 12%, but from 2018 to 2020, there is a drastic increase in the number of transportations provided. So the percentage has more than doubled from 2019 to 2020. So that again raises something that you should be, we should be getting ready to provide more and more transportation services for the people. And then I looked at the monthly variations in each service provided. So food was in high demand basically throughout the year. And for the shopping, March was the highest. So in all 3 years. And transportation, again, it's been high throughout the year. But for food, June and July, which is in the winter, was the highest demand. And in March, the shopping was highest. That may be because the schools start, so the shopping requirements may have gone high. And transportation, I will show in next slide how actually transportation have gone high. even within the COVID time. So by actually looking at these graphs, it is important, like it is really helpful to know, to provide which service at what time of the year, so they can be ready in advance. So I was looking at the annual trends. As I was saying earlier, food shopping and transportation was going high from 2018 to 19, but from 19 to 20, because of the COVID, they all dropped. But transportation actually has a overall increase from 2018 to 2020. Then I looked at the who they are actually serving. So mostly Maori, and then European communities are also there, and Pacific Islanders, and 4% of the population have been for the other ethnicities, including Indian and Asian. But what I really wanted to raise here is the second pie chart, which says both males and females, but adults and children. So they are serving 14% of the children in the area as well. So that is basically my presentation, but I would like to summarize, raising the key points. So the demands for services keeps increasing amid the COVID-19 pandemic, and service areas are also expanding, and my analysis will really be helpful for them to time their services, and collection more data, like more information about the areas, would be more helpful. So thank you so much. You want to?
Tēnā koutou, ko Karina Ho. I have been a part of the Te Ropu Oranga o Haibri team for the past 5 years now, and to me, it has been the greatest learning journey to see exactly what can be accomplished and achieved on the smell of an oily rag and just a handful of amazing volunteers. We have managed to create a community hub that has been shaped by the community, and every service that we now offer has been in direct response to what the community is asking us for and what they are telling us they need help with today. Today, someone needs help to feed their whānau. Today, someone needs help to keep their children warm. Today, someone needs help getting to the doctors, and today, someone just wants someone to listen. Our kaupapa has always been a place for the people, by the people, building our ability to find our own solutions. With this kaupapa, we have managed to create a community-driven space that just gets it done. No matter what is needed, we do what we can with what we have. Now we find ourselves in a place where we dare to dream of offering solutions, not only just for today, but also for tomorrow. We dream of seeing whānau becoming empowered, self-sufficient entrepreneurs and teachers. Today we are here to ask for your help. We are asking to sit down with the council to find solutions for our 3 wants that we need in order to grow and expand. We want a new venue that is accessible to the community. We want to upgrade our transport service, and we want to expand our workforce. Ngā mihi.
Kia ora, thank you so much for that. Is there anything you want to add before we open for questions? Okay, so we first of all have Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for your presentation and the amazing work that you're doing. When you talk about the transport services, I'm just interested to understand what sort of examples there are of when people need those services. I think you might have mentioned just before, you know, sometimes people need to go to the doctor, but what other sort of examples when you're offering that service are people wanting to use it for?
Yep, so over the years, our biggest transport ask is probably going to see doctors or hospital visits, going to the pharmacy to pick up medication,
We've got people asking us for a ride to Just Zilch. So part of our main service, 5 days a week, we have a van, a very small rundown van, that runs people from the community to Just Zilch to collect kai for themselves and their whānau. So it's about taking down barriers and making sure that it's accessible for everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Health and social services, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Chrissy, Naveen and Corinne for being here today. Similar questions actually around the transport space. So you've unpacked that a little bit. Can you tell me how the driver's side of it works? Can you tell me what other vehicles you may have access to? But most importantly, I wanted to hear about the future. You said that this was one of your 3 areas that you wanted to upgrade. Do you understand what's needed, and can you tell us what is needed?
Our van, you know, it's been very reliable over the years, so our van is good. But as the need grows, you know, we probably need a bigger van. We also do, we've got a trailer, so we bought ourselves a trailer, so we use that trailer to help people who can't access a trailer, but it comes with a van and a driver. So all of our drivers are volunteers, and we'll help people move out of their flats, pick up furniture, drop off furniture, that type of thing. Yeah.
So to be clear, then you're looking for a bigger vehicle rather than more vehicles?
Yeah, probably just a bigger, you know, more updated vehicle. Yeah.
Right, thank you. Madam Chair.
I suppose we're a bit like a resource centre. So if people don't have those resources, then how do they access them? And I suppose we are providing those sort of resources for our community, as long as they're not moving to Auckland.
Thanks. Just a question from me. Are you working with any of the community development team at the moment, or do we need to help you make those links to some of the council's community development team?
Well, like we said, we've just been getting on with it.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have tried in the past, but it doesn't seem to have gone that far. And so that's why we're sitting here today, Lorna, because you got us here. So thanks for that.
That's good. Thank you for accepting the invitation. That's awesome. So are there any further questions? Danielle.
Just through the chair, kia ora to you all. What are your aspirations in terms of a venue? Because that is definitely one of the things you're looking to grow.
We just want that one that's going to meet our needs. Currently, we are operating out of a shed. You know, it's a reasonably sized shed, but it's pretty old. It really needs to be pulled down. And we need a place that's a bit warmer, of course. Fantastic in summer, terrible in winter. So we want to look after our volunteers and look after our community, and we know that the infrastructure in Highbury and around that area isn't that great. There aren't that many options. So that's why we set up where we did. So, yeah, a brand new venue would be great. Yep. We kind of know a bit of land that's there that we thought. Yeah, so that type of thing. It's sensible. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. A question from Councillor Butt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, team. I was just thinking, when you say shop, it's going down, does it involve only taking community members for shopping, or you pay something for their shopping, number one? Number two, sorry, how it is different from transport? If you are taking somebody, do you walk them, don't take transport, or how does it work?
Do you mean how do people come and ask for transport services? Is that what the question was?
When you take somebody for shopping, so it's doubling in my mind.
So our shop that we've got on there is actually a shop that's run out of the shed that we're working from. It's a free shop, no money is exchanged. We offer clothes, shoes, household items. We connect different people up in the community to find items that they may need as well. So we don't sell or anything like that. It's purely all just given for free and donated by the community.
All right, thank you, clear. I thought you are taking people to shopping somewhere else. Okay.
Yeah, to Just Zilch, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That seems to be the end of the questions, so thank you very much for your presentation. I'll get you to take a seat back in the public gallery now. Thank you. So I am happy to move that the committee receive the presentation for information. Seconded Councillor Bowen. And just before we have comment, I'll just pass over to the General Manager of Customer for a comment. Thank you.
Yeah, look, thank you for your presentation. It was really good to get a bit of insight into what you're doing. We do have a new community coordinator working in our community development team, Amy Viles, and so one of her roles is to work with the community groups in your area. So what I'll do is I'll go back and make sure that she's got on her to-do list to reach out and have a chat and see if we can provide you a bit of advice and support about how you may be able to, potentially access some, apply for grants or something like that, or whatever it is that we may be able to help with.
Thank you. Councillors, is there anyone wishing to make comment? Well, I'll just make comment that I think Te Whareko has been one of the unsung community successes for a long time. I expect some councillors may not even have heard of it, but there's terrific amount of community empowerment and goodwill going down in that space, and so I just want to acknowledge the work of the people who started it, as well as the continuing work of the volunteers and staff, and just say thank you very much for your mahi. We appreciate it. So with that, we will vote to receive the presentation. And that is carried, 15 votes for and none against. Thank you. So item 7 is confirmation of the minutes, and that's on page 11. So I'm happy to move that the minutes of the Community Development Committee meeting of the 17th of March 2021, Part 1 Public, be confirmed as a true and correct record. Seconded Councillor Bowen. Are there any corrections? No. So let's vote to receive the minutes. And that is carried, 13 votes for, none against, with 2 abstentions. So that takes us on to item 8, which is a memo from Julie MacDonald, Progress Update Community Funding Policy. And we've got Julie to speak to that.
Kia ora koutou, councillors. I think this report is reasonably self-explanatory, but we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Julie. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just nervous of my microphone. If it squeals, I'm sorry. Thank you for the report, Julie. And yes, pretty self-explanatory. I think my question is about, well, 2 areas particularly. The review, now it goes beyond the long-term plan. How will that deal with funds that are currently not included in the long-term plan but under consideration? So things like the Art Initiatives Fund or Arts Age Grade funds, which are, depending on which book you read, one is in and one is out, but neither are referenced here. So how will this link into the outcomes of long-term plan discussions?
So as through you, Madam Chair, as the report describes, the envelopes are set within the 10-year plan process, and so that's the funding process. What this policy will go on to do is determine how funding is allocated, but if there are already processes for allocating funding, then those will continue in accordance with the current strategic direction. I mean, particularly given that there's no major departure from the current direction signal, that makes this a reasonably straightforward process to continue with the guidance that's already available.
And then in terms of the purpose of this review, which is trying to get a handle on all of the support we offer community, I wondered if you could explain why the rates rebate scheme is outside of that, because that does seem to be a significant area where we support community groups.
So if you, on page 21, the currently out of scope blue boxes, the reason for them being out of scope is usually because their guidance comes from some other process. So for example, the rates rebate scheme is a government determined process. And so we, a council, is really just administering something on the behalf of another body. It doesn't really seem appropriate to have that up for discussion in a council policy, because it's not our decision for this table.
So when that draft consultation document comes back to us, it will explain that there are other ways that we provide that support, and
indeed
tease that one out. Excellent. And then my last question was about, I think also on page 21, yes, just above next steps. It says if the recommendations are adopted, there will be little impact on the rollout of strategic priority grants, because it's about envelopes, which you've explained. I just wanted to, get some clarity there about how, if we don't know what the recommendations are, how will we know that there's little impact? Is it a chicken and egg kind of conversation?
So through you, Madam Chair, so originally, as explained, we had intended to have this policy out for consultation alongside the 10-year plan, and hopefully we explained why that hasn't happened. In some ways, I think it's probably an advantage to have this policy following the 10-year plan. One slightly fortuitous reason is because all the community groups that are affected by this policy are currently busy doing about 9 other things, including submitting on the 10-year plan, but also because then it really clearly makes a distinction between council's discussion about the amount of funding and then how that's administered. It's just a process that follows on. So for the strategic priority grants, which is the major process affected by this policy and that is kind of waiting on it, if council had been signalling a fairly major departure, I guess, through the proposed 10-year plan, which it has not, then perhaps we would have made sure that it did just go ahead and we did it already. But because we're reasonably confident from the proposal in the 10-year plan that is a continuation and the goals are the same and the sort of objectives are the same, then it does seem a reasonably, it doesn't seem to be a particularly risky thing to do. The staff have clarity, the groups who are going to be funded have clarity as to the direction that council signalled.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Julie. Did many councillors participate in the? There was a count. I think there was a bit of a process to get to this, wasn't there? Did many councillors participate in that?
Do you mean, sorry, through Madam Chair, the councillor workshop?
No, we were asked to give some feedback around these events.
Sorry, are you talking about the business assurance review?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay, Ms. Uma can answer that question. Sorry, that's not the main focus of this report. Sorry.
I think you may be referring to the report that's yet to come, Grant.
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
Mayor. That's going to come in 2 weeks to the Finance and Audit Committee.
Okay, all right. Could just a couple more questions. So is there a problem we're trying to fix here, or are we just trying to tick all the boxes and get everything into the right shape? I say that, I'll give you some context before you answer. We've already got a number of processes, like the Smarty Grant process dictates what happens with major events, and Palmy Unleashed, the yellow boxes, and the panel sits on that decides the Sports Event Partnership Fund. That's from Council Sport Manawatu run that, and I think CEDA feed into that, and the Natural and Cultural Incentive Fund, I'm unsure how who sort of decides on that. But is there a problem with that?
No, so we do have Smarty Grants that covers all grants, and that includes community grants. I think we just identified the policy gap because the policy currently covers community grants but not events. And that's what's been recommended in the business assurance review, is that we give consideration to having that policy.
Okay. All right, I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it to comment.
Thank you. Thanks, Ms Emma. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Julie, for the report. And it may have become almost clear to me in the last answer there, but so the trigger for this review was what?
The trigger for the review of the policy is that it's time to update the community funding policy. And you'll recall that a while ago the councillors decided to incorporate community leasing of council-owned property and to incorporate those things. And so that was the workshop I referred to before when I was answering a different question that was being asked. So council provided some direction to officers that while we had policy for grants funding, we didn't necessarily have it for other support provided by council. So the trigger was just a normal policy review, and it was the direction provided by councillors at that time was that you wished to see this policy, I guess from a user perspective, from groups receiving support from council, we were seeing it as, well, here's a grant and here's a lease and here's something else, whereas from a user perspective, that it would be a lot easier to sort of say, how can we apply for support from council? And so this policy won't quite get there, but it's certainly going to be a few steps down the road to making sure it's a bit more of an inclusive, there's going to be more in it than is outside it, whereas currently there's more outside it than is in it.
Thank you.
Does that answer?
That's helpful. Yeah, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Finlay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You partly answered before, but just want to go a little bit deeper if I can. With the rate rebate scheme, really, all that has to do with council really is that we administer on behalf of the government. And I presume the government pays us to do that administration?
Stuart, may I be able to answer that question?
No.
Please, Julie's confident. I don't actually know the answer. I don't believe we do get any funding for it at all, no.
So we get no reimbursement for our part in that?
I'm wary to be absolutely definite because I don't know the absolute answer, but I don't believe we get anything.
Okay, thank you. Because the reason I just mentioned is to even affect or even have any change in the rebate scheme, we can't, as council, can't have any say at all because it goes through central government. And I just wonder if it should be there at all.
So if I might throw you, Madam Chair, to clarify that the boxes on page 21 about what's currently out of scope is what's proposed to be out of scope. So we're not intending that become part of scope. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mr Mayor.
Sorry, Madam Chair, sorry to jump back in. So, Julie, this business assurance review was presented and the ELT had some concerns with it. What were the concerns?
I'm not a member of ELT. Through you, Madam Chair, I might refer that to David for answer. I can have a crack though, because I'm seeing confused faces. So my understanding is, and this is Masuma's report that is yet to be considered by council, is that there is a policy gap for some events funding, and so given that we were reviewing the funding policy which provides support to communities, it seemed wise to include that within the review of this policy.
Are we all agreed on that?
Look, I've just spoken to Basuma, and I'm not sure there were concerns from ELT. I mean,
it's in the report. There's concerns.
Well, certainly the report has been approved and is coming to the committee, which recommends the same thing that's been recommended to you now in terms of the changes to the policy.
Okay. Second question, if I may, Madam Chair. So, although the ELT proposes the inclusion of a revised policy, it doesn't mean to say we need to approve it or do it, does it?
Through you, Madam Chair, this report provides an update on the review of the policy that you have already agreed to. The report points out that we will be bringing a revised policy for you to consider to a later meeting.
Yeah,
So
but doesn't mean to
this is
say
not the
we need
policy
to.
content now.
Okay. So these yellow things, these boxes, have been added to it. Is that correct?
That's the proposed inclusion.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Is that it, Mr Mayor? Thank you. That brings us to the end of questions, so thank you, Julie. I'm happy to move the two recommendations. Second from Councillor Bowen. Is there any comment? Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I have to admit, reading this, you start to realise how many buckets of money we've got littering council that people apply to for funding to support community activity. It was good to hear through the officer's comments here that Smarty Grants underpins all of that our community members are used to using one format for their application. And a lot of this is internal admin about how we've allocated that funding. And so having all of those boxes on the go and maybe more post long-term plan, as I alluded to in my questions, for me there does seem to be some things that are not included there. I think it would be good to have some clarity for us as decision makers about how all of that works at a policy level. I know as we're in the long-term plan space, and we've already had our workshops with community groups, there's already been some discussion, particularly around strategic priority grants and how the community has views on how effectively that operates at the moment and changes that they would like to see to that funding policy. So I do expect some active engagement with this when we get it out. There was some confusion, in fact, in the long-term plan workshops about this community funding policy not being part of the long-term plan discussion. So people are definitely keen to engage, and I imagine will make themselves heard. We might just have to prepare ourselves for a little bit of confusion through the submissions process when they try to get ahead of some of that conversation. So I do support us updating the policy review work that's going on and taking this through to the next report that will come back to us to set that out in detail. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just make comment that I think it would have been preferable perhaps to have had this available for consultation at the same time as the 10-year plan. However, it's more important that we get it right. And there are a whole range of supports available to the community. And sometimes just one or two areas seem to get focused on. So I do think it would be good to have a policy that covers all of the community support that we provide as best we can, so that that can be counted, as well as so that we can, in our own minds, be clear about the level of support that we're providing. There is a sort of a risk of community groups missing out on a number of different pots and then not getting any support, and other people managing to get support out of every pot. And so a bit of a wider overview, I think, would be quite helpful. So I'm happy to receive the memo to at least know where we're heading with this, and look forward to the policy coming back later. So no further comments. Mr Mayor.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I was on the queue there. I don't know what happened there, technology. Look, I'm just a little bit concerned that that there could be some unforeseen consequences. I mean, we do have checks and balances in place. The Smarty Grant process is across everything. It's actually one of the more comprehensive, and some may say that have applied through it, onerous type grant processes in the country, certainly more comprehensive than our colleagues in Auckland and Wellington. But there is checks and balances on some of these out-of-scope that now want to be in scope funds. So, yes, it will tackle, I suppose, a wider policy umbrella holistically over the whole top, but I just do hope that we don't actually hinder the very people and community groups that we want to help. Community leases on community-owned land and buildings, I'm just struggling to see where our gaps are. I really am. And I understand the ELT obviously have raised concerns about it, but I just don't know what they are. So, look, I'll go with the flow, but I just be wary of unforeseen consequences that may come out of this, make it harder for the very people we're trying to help.
So I'll just exercise the right of reply then. Whilst I hear some of the concerns that have been expressed, the draft policy will be coming to us for sign-off before we go out and consult on it. And I think if we're not happy with the policy at that point, that would be an opportunity to make any changes that we think we might need. So I think there's still opportunity for us to have input before we go out for consultation, and certainly before the policy is adopted. So with that, we will take the vote on these two together, please. And that's carried 15 votes for and none against. Brings us to our last item of business today, which is the committee work schedule on page 23. Did you want to make any comment? No, okay. So I'm happy to move the work schedule be received. Seconded, Councillor Bowen. Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This may be more of an administrative thing, but just looking at the work schedule, there's a number of things in December, but I don't see what we will have included in the next quarterly Community Development Committee, and I'm just wondering if there's any consideration of changing the timing of anything that's to come.
I mean, in terms of the items number 1 and 2, they are 12 monthly reports, so I wouldn't see that there'd be much to be gained by bringing them forward. And in terms of the presentation from the Disability Reference Group, it was in response to your request that they be allowed to present annually that the December date was given. But I guess we could consult with them to see if they wanted to present in the September meeting instead.
I think last year it was September, and I think that would be a reasonable thing to consider. Yeah.
Okay, if you just hang on a minute, I'll just confer with the General Manager. Yep, we're happy if the Disability Reference Group want to request to present in September. They're only on the work schedule because of the request that they not be forgotten about. So. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll move to vote then, please. Can you just check that you've all voted, please? And that's carried 15 votes for and none against. So that brings us to the end of the meeting. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you.